who wants to be an entrepreneur, build a business one day? Only a handful of people. What about the rest? Go into finance, accounting, consulting. Okay, well, maybe we can change your mind today and see if you want to be an entrepreneur. So a bit about myself. So I'm an SF alumni. I went to engineering school up in Burnaby. And then I started working with Affinity after graduating. So in consulting role, then a couple other roles down the road. And then I decided to part ways with Affinity because I wanted to build something on my own. So as of right now, I've been talking about AI and how to use that in work for 4 years over my socials, with my alias digitalSamaritan. And then right now we have a venture studio. So we basically turn ideas into products. We just love building things. Then we put them into the market. Right now we have 3 launch products, 3 software products in the market, all AI based. And then we have 4th one right now the team's working on, and we're probably going to be launching in the next month or so. Beside that, we also have a consulting company. So we consult small to medium sized businesses in terms of like AI implementation in their workforce. So again, leveraging the consulting experience to learn from Affinity, just applying that into a new space. All right. So in this workshop, I just want to share what I think about AI and how you can leverage that to build a business. We're going to talk about how do you even think about ideas, how do you build MVPs, how you validate that, and then how you go to market. Super easy stuff. It's never been that easy to build a startup from scratch. We have one of our projects that we went from idea to first customer in literally 4 days, just using this. Okay, so first is ideating with AI. Most people, what they might want to do is just go to ChatGPT or they go to Claude and just ask for ideas. Maybe now deep research tool that's now available on Claude, sorry, actually not on Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, or ChatGPT, you can probably do that. It's going to give you good ideas. But that's going to be same garbage everybody else is going to get. What you really need is a seed. You need to plant a seed in AI so you can get better ideas. Generally speaking, it's really just really good guessing machine, these LLM models. So how do we identify those seeds? There are 3 ways that we like to go about identifying seeds. So the first is social listening. That's how we came up with ideas for our 2 products, which is Prompt Genie and Map This. So for Prompt Genie, late 2022, early 2023, I was scrolling Twitter and I saw a bunch of these posts be like, hey, comment this keyword, retweet, must be following, I'll send you my list of 100 prompts. Those posts massively viral. These are some of the screenshots I pulled up recently in terms of the engagement you see on these posts. And we saw that as a signal that people are interested in prompts. We would just think it's silly, it's just writing English, but people are interested. We explored those prompts. They were not that useful. The usability aspect, these are all just Notion docs. You kind of have to go in, you have to see what you want, and it's not tailored. So it's kind of not that useful. So we were like, okay, can we turn this into a product that's actually more tailored, more useful, more user-friendly, and then see if people want to buy it. So that was the signal we used. And before we built the product, we actually used a way to validate that, which I'm going to touch on a bit later. But we were able to generate $900 in revenue even before we started building the product. So I'll share how we kind of did that to understand if people are willing to buy for this. The second is, so in terms of social listening, was Map This. So I talked about a workflow on my socials where I talked about how you can use GPTs, custom GPTs, to turn your any notes, lecture notes into a mind map, for people who love visual learning and mind mappers and stuff. That post is one of my most viral posts on my channel with 21 million views. And even though the whole process was sort of talked in the video, I got lots of DMs asking me, how do I do it? Is there an easier way? I want to do this. That was a signal we identified as a way to maybe we can turn this into a product. So that's one way to identify social signal. In these 2 scenarios, it was kind of direct what we need to do. But of course, we had this privilege of, the content that's working, we kind of pick signals that way. But maybe you don't have that. Maybe you don't have a content channel that's working, or you find those signals in general your day-to-day life. So there are 2 ways you can go about identifying those sort of signals. One is looking at data. So this is a screenshot from a platform called explodingtopics.com. Basically, you can filter by the industry, you can filter by the time window, and it gives you just a trend of what's happening in terms of the keyword searches or the products and stuff like that. For example, one of the trends I saw a couple of years ago was the champagne walls for wedding. Again, that's a signal that you see there's a big trend going on in the space. So that's sort of one way you can start identifying those seeds. If some of the platforms are paid, the other option is using tools like Gummy Search. That's a Reddit research platform. You go onto the platform, you identify your community, so you pick the subreddits that you're interested in, and it's going to tell you all the pains and angers people are interested in, all the questions that community is asking. So you can start seeing like what people are actually talking about, what signal they're giving you in terms of what their needs and wants are. That's how you start building like, some of those like seeds for the AI. Of course, sometimes it's just direct right there. Hey, this is what I want, you just build it. But sometimes it's not direct. Just give me one more slide. I'm going to talk about what do we do with these seeds after. So another idea where you can start generating some ideas is reflection. So back in 2019, when I was working at Affinity, I wanted to buy my first car. I wanted to buy a Mini Cooper. So before that, I would be like, taking transit to whatever. I would not really pay attention to any Mini Coopers driving by. But when I decided that I was going to buy a Mini Cooper, after that, I was seeing Mini Cooper everywhere. I would see like, okay, there's one driving here, one driving there. It's just because like my brain used to think it was a noise, but now I have an association, so it turned that into a signal. So I decided, okay, so that's an interesting concept. I can like sort of fine tune my brain, how I can use it to like my own leverage and start coming up with ideas. So I do like a weekly or daily journal routine where I just have some questions I'd like to kind of answer for myself for reflection. So I started asking one more question to myself: what are the problems identified in my day-to-day life? So that's another way I can start generating more ideas in my day-to-day life, because these are the problems I'm actually solving. Actually facing myself, and I could be solving for others. All right, so once you have, identified your seed as a starting point, now we go to LLMs. Now we go to AI to help us with ideation. One of the ways we can do so is, using Ikigai principle. For example, we can talk about, hey, these are some of the things we're seeing in the industry. These are my skills, these are my experiences, these are my interests. How I can turn this into like, a business idea. What are not just the first order, but second order or third order consequences of these trends that's happening? Because first order is usually obvious, but maybe we can look into like second or third order. For example, let's say, Amazon, is doing really good e-commerce sales. What's the second order effect? Anybody who's supplying them the cardboard boxes that we receive our packages in, that's a second order effect of that business trend that's happening. So of course we can do the brainstorming ourselves, or we can leverage AI to start getting us some ideas. Let's talk about how do we validate these ideas. So lots of ideas out there, but sometimes it's not the right idea. Maybe sometimes we're not the right fit for that idea. So there's a few questions we need to ask before we jump into whole business proposal, market research, and all that stuff. We got to ask ourselves, can we sell? For example, right now, if I have an idea for, maybe an Airbnb, like for amenities room across different downtown buildings. Great idea on paper. I love to book a place like, some other building I don't live in, but I don't have any access to realtors. I'm not in the space. I don't understand the space. I don't have the network. I'm not going to be able to sell that business. Doesn't matter how great of the product is. So either I have to partner up with someone who can bring that skill to the table, or I just have to move on to the next idea. So a failed project here, it's called Random Gift Idea, something I built in 2018, 2019. It was basically Tinder for shopping, or like gifts basically. So it's like coming up with gift ideas was really hard. I was like, cool, what if there's a Tinder for shopping down based on like my recommendation, it's gonna like tell me which other gift ideas that's on the internet. I built it out. We made $1.72 in revenue over 2 months, but it failed because we didn't really have the audience. We couldn't sell. We were not the right fit. The second question you got to ask yourself if there's a business model. So one of the products we built in 2021 was called Recom. It was a Chrome extension. The way it worked was that if you're on IKEA looking for a bed, it's out of stock. That's kind of what it sparked, because there was a lot of IKEA shortages and it just moved apartments. The Chrome extension will automatically have a pop-up. You click on it. It's going to show you the exact same product on Marketplace in your neighborhood. So our proposition was that it's cheaper for the buyer. It's easily accessible. It's better for the environment, and because they don't have to use a new product. So there's a lot of wins there, but the reason it failed, even we had a few users, I think the screenshot says like we have a few users on there. It declined now because, when we launched, it was like 150 users, but there was no business model. We didn't really think about how we're gonna make money off of it, because the transaction is happening on Marketplace, which is not trackable. So we lost the business because we didn't really have a good business model. We didn't have the capacity to work with, those big retailers to do a B2B angle to it. So that was not a right idea for us. The other option, the other thing I gotta think about is the audience, do they have their buying power? So our product Map This has over 300,000 registered users in just over a year. But the number of paying users is minuscule. We should be making a lot more revenue from the product than we do. And the reason is we're targeting the wrong audience. It's students. I've been a student before, you're a student right now. We don't have money. We're not gonna pay for a software application that's not gonna be that impactful to the studies or to the grades and stuff. So that's where we lost the market share or the revenue we could have had, even though with such a massive user base, because we were not targeting the right audience. They didn't have the buying power that we needed for our business to sustain. And the same kind of goes with the next point, which is to understand the problem space. I'm not a student anymore. Our small team, we're not students anymore. we were. So we don't really understand the current circumstances of how students sort of approach the learning processes. So we didn't really have a deep understanding of their problem space, which means we don't really know which features to build next. Of course, we can do a lot of the customer research and all that stuff. That's consuming of resources and a lot of time. So it's good for quick cash, but to build a long-term sustainable business, that's not what we need. So we need to have like these few questions that we need to understand, identify if we're the right fit, and then we move on to like the market research and everything else. Of course, these are just a few questions that we can answer, or you can chat with LLMs like ChatGPT and Claude and ask it to interview those questions to identify if you're going to be the right fit for that idea or not. So once you have identified that you have the right idea, now we kind of go into the market research. So we can use OpenAI, if you're on that $200 plan, or use Gemini. So Gemini Deep Research Tool, you get 1 month free for like the Gemini Advanced, or you can go to Perplexity. So we're gonna pause now. We're gonna basically, for people who came up with ideas, everybody who did, and people who shared and people who didn't share, use Perplexity's Deep Research Tool and do a quick little market analysis of your idea. You can use a simple prompt, as simple as like, hey, I have this idea. What are the market landscape of it? Who are the competitors? What's the market size? What's the market opportunity here? So we can pause here for like a couple of minutes. You can go to Perplexity on your phones or your laptops and use their new Deep Research tool to do the research. Make sure you when you are using Perplexity, you use the Deep Research model. I think it should show up when you do pick the model. Okay, so as you can see, the tools are pretty powerful. We can get a lot of done in very quick time. We go from just quick see data, look at the data, generate ideas. We look at ask ourselves questions. If you're the right fit, then we do some research. And then if everything's looking good, you can use Claude and ChatGPT. This is the prompt I used, and you can just generate that business plan if something that's required for your competitions, your business plan. If you're working with investors, of course, like was mentioned before, you got to be skeptical of everything that AI is generating, but it's still a good starting point. Okay, so let's say you have a business plan, you have the idea, everything's looking good. Now you want to actually build it. So building is hard. Building takes a lot of time. How can we still stay lean and then validate if people are willing to buy? So if you put something out there, you ask for sign up list, newsletter, waitlist sign up. Sure, it's a signal, but are they willing to buy? That's a signal we need to know. We need to know if people, the consumers, the customers we're targeting, they're willing to buy. If this is a vitamin, there's a painkiller, are they going to pay for that solution? So to do that, there's multiple ways we can, start testing it out. I'm going to give an example for how we did that with Prompt Genie. So our intent with Prompt Genie was that we wanted to see if there's a buying signal, because of course those prompts are getting viral on Twitter, people are looking into it, but are people willing to pay for it? And we're going to focus on the end goal here. What are the problems we're solving? We're solving good prompts, which means good results. Are people willing to pay for good prompts? So what we did was when we were building the back end of the product, we generated about 100 prompts in the same category that other prompts were going viral on Twitter. So I posted a video, a quick one on my channel, and asked people hey, here's a list of 100 prompts. Are you going to pay for if you want to buy it, it's I don't know, it's $2-3 or something. It's super cheap. And we were able to generate about $900 in revenue in 12 to 14 hours or so. So that gave us a signal with the minimum amount of work we could do that people are willing to buy. And then we asked for feedback. We got some great feedback that it's useful. They actually found it useful and all that stuff. So that kind of gave us the feedback that we should actually start pursuing this project. Of course, we had the leverage because we had the audience, we had the platform. We could, actually kind of go to the market right away. But if you don't have that, you may want to stay a bit more leaner. You want to find ways how you can identify that. So this is where you can work with Claude and ChatGPT. You can ask it to start suggesting you ways to sort of build an MVP. You could do a Wizard of Oz style. By that, what I mean is, for example, let's say you want to build a two-sided marketplace. Maybe it's for kayak equipment or outdoorsy people to share their camping gear or whatnot. This is it's a good idea. You've validated everything, but two-sided marketplaces are really complex. You're gonna sell to both sides. It's just really messy. I've worked in that company before. It's just really difficult business. So a leaner way to validate that would be to have a Facebook group. You start with a Facebook group, you build a community, you see how people interact, how people exchange sort of that marketplace scenario, and you learn from how they operate, you learn from their exchange of value, and then you use that feedback into building something. So that's one example of how you can, kind of do Wizard of Oz style, where you can find a different approach to validate the exact end goal through maybe a bit more manual work. The other option is to start using AI tools like Lovable or Replit, where you can turn ideas into like an actually working prototype of applications. This is the idea I had to do email marketing with AI. So our idea is that you can turn your prompt into a whole email marketing campaign. So I wanted to like build a quick prototype for it. And even though these tools work really great, but what I like doing is instead of just giving it the idea as it advertised idea to apps in seconds, I like to go onto Claude or ChatGPT and ask it to generate me like, a list of requirements. Anything, you would want to give to a product manager would generate for the dev team. So that way everything is really broken down clear by clear steps, what the dev needs to do. So paste, I guess all my sort of the requirements into this as a prompt. And then these were some of the screenshots I got for the application here. These are like multiple screens of the app that I was able to generate in like 30 seconds. Has anyone played with these like AI to app generation tools before? We have couple of people in the room. Okay, let's do this, another fun exercise. Get this app called Replit on your phones. It's available on iOS for sure. I'm not sure about Android. Replit. So Replit, they have a web version. They also have a version for mobile where you can turn your ideas into an application. So try, any random app they may you kind of like, of course, it's not going to be as complicated, but maybe you want to do your fitness tracker. Maybe you want to do, your plant health app sort of thing. Try using that idea into Replit as a prompt and see what you generate. Cool, we'll move on. So the point I wanted to make was just that it's quite empowering, all these tools, that you can go from idea to like your MVP a lot quickly than you used to before. Even knowing how to code, you can still have like a prototype ready. It's not a Figma or design prototype, it's actually a workable prototype. And then once you have something ready, of course you can work with a co-founder, with a team, or develop it further, but you want to like validate the buying signal first. So we're going to move on to a bit of on the marketing side a bit as well. So how once you do have something, how do you go about marketing? At least what has worked for us in the past. So the biggest thing I would say, the biggest driver you could have for a business if you're the founder would be to do content, community building. So some people think it's cringe, some people think it's not, it's hard, I know, but it is quite essential these days to kind of like do that because everybody can build it. We know how easy it is to build things. So the only differentiation it's going to have if you don't understand your customers well is like if you're just able to market it really well. So a couple of ways you can kind of get around that is to like identify your target audience. You can use tools like Spark Turo, kind of talk about your audience, and it's going to give you a platform on like where your target customer might even like engage the most. But for the most part, you would probably know that, if you're talking certain topic, it's going to be LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, whatever, wherever your audience might be. Pick your platform and just start creating content. And then creating content could look different. It could be as simple as like just sharing resources for the community, like, sharing news for the community. People will start seeing you as a bit of like, person who's intrigued and engaged in the space. You can start talking about the pain point you're trying to solve. So content helps because like you can drive your brand through your own personality and it's a lot more authentic. So that's one way you can start like, marketing from day one when you identify the problem. The other option is, like you can do AI SEO. By AI SEO, I just don't mean like you do like the whole AI slop and put content everywhere, but you got to think about, how do you get AI to recommend the problem, like the solution that you could build for the problem that you want to solve. I mean, right now, I've like consciously making a note of this. I have not used Google for search in the past 2.5 months. I've been using Perplexity for the most part, which means whenever I'm searching something, I'm not going the traditional SEO way. I'm going the way how AI is going to recommend things on, from the search perspective. So you got to start thinking about that from the marketing perspective. And then as these tools are really easy to build, we can really leverage engineering as marketing. What I mean by engineering as marketing is that we can start building these little tools that could act as a funnel to the overall product. For example, if we look at the example of that magnetic lash company, maybe you could have like a marketing tool that sort of talks about like, okay, what's kind of the right sort of like, I don't know much about lashes. I'm just going to make a random example here. Like what kind of lash shape what's going to be best for your face. That's a tool you can make using tools like Replit or Lovable. And then that's going to be something that's going to go viral on the internet. It's going to bring traffic to the platform. They look at those lashes. And now once you have, the face or the lash type, it's going to recommend the products that the company is building. So you can like start building these little nifty tools as a way to do marketing. So this is what I like to call engineering as marketing. And of course, content marketing, talk about your stories. People love hearing revenue numbers. We just launched a new product, and then I had like, first customer for that. I posted that story. The story had more views than my previous launch video about that topic. So people love stories. So like, content marketing from various angles is always a good start. But once you know what's working, then we can start using AI a lot more to scale it up. For example, for Prompt Genie, we know our organic content marketing is working on social media. So we started using AI generated avatar, basically AI UGC, to do the content. And one of the recent content is actually performing really well. It's crossed 500,000 views. I think we're pretty close. And that's an AI generated avatar. So it's an AI generated avatar. We have a hook on top, and then we just have a product demo after. That video has driven a lot of traffic, and this was AI generated in like 30 seconds. I was actually showing my team this specific video, like how to do this thing. And as I was showing, I just kind of created this quick demo and posted it up online, and this video blew up. So once we know what's working for us, now we're using AI to like start scaling up our, different marketing strategies. Again, if this is like content you're working on, like, your first platform, is it LinkedIn, Twitter? Now you can leverage AI to start reposting or cross-posting, repurposing into other platforms. The point is, you don't want to start with AI as marketing and like have it generate a bunch of slop, bunch of things everywhere. You need to first experiment, see what's working, and what's working, use AI to scale that up. Same goes with, engineering as marketing experiments, or SEO, or like, the AI search sort of experiments. So yeah, just to kind of sum it up, we talked about how we look into generating ideas using AI, how we go into researching about it, validating it, then we sort of build our MVPs, and then we kind of go about marketing. I hope this was good for some takeaways. You learned something new, and people who have some business ideas, next year you have a successful business.